enemies, but rather permanent interest. Who would have ever thought that Professor Jonathan Moyo, at this point in time, would be Emerson Mnangagwa's 2030 term extension? A man who is living outside Zimbabwe in a foreign land because he crossed the line of Emerson Mnangagwa. All of a sudden, they are working together. He is now taking Emerson Mnangagwa, justifying his 2030 term extension ambitions. And on this live broadcast, I'll be taking you through the article that he shared on his account a few days ago. Greetings and welcome to your lovely channel, the Thonipani Global News. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. So, according to Professor Jonathan Moyo, that is how he writes. So, I will be reading this. It's going to be a long reading. If I get tired, I'll just cut it off. He says, I don't know what happens with this AI. It's distasteful. YouTube can actually sort out this. Now, let me read this. It says, explain that debunking myths why Section 95(2)(b) is not a term limit provision requiring a referendum. So Professor Jonathan Moyo is the one advising Emerson Mnangagwa that it is possible to mutilate the constitution of Zimbabwe without going through a referendum, or to change the constitution to extend his term of office, of which we know that the constitution is so clear in terms of defining the terms. If it is silent about something, it means that thing does not exist in the constitution at all. But there are crooks like Professor Jonathan Moyo who will actually twist the things to push a nefarious agenda. That is where they come in. That is how they are used, especially by those with the money to use. So he says, imagine a constitution not as an unyielding monolithic cast in stone for eternity, but as a living, breathing instrument of a democratic society, crafted by the hands of our compatriots, many still amongst us, to evolve with national aspirations for prosperity while safeguarding against the whims of power. The Constitution of Zimbabwe 2013 embodies precisely that kind of an enlightened vision, with Section 95(2)(b) elegantly prescribing a 5-year cycle for the enduring institution of the presidency. This provision, attuned to unforeseen events and legal contingencies, ensures uninterrupted governance and periodic democratic renewal. It stands unequivocally as a duration or term length clause, imposing no absolute ceiling on an occupant's cumulative tenure, a pivotal distinction that shatters the misguided belief that amending Section 95(2)(b) somehow necessitates a national referendum under Section 3287. Instead, the section paves the way for thoughtful and meaningful constitutional evolution, fortifying democracy against stagnation and authoritarian backsliding. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, he says dispelling dangerous myths. This is according to Professor Jonathan Moyo, by the way. Yet, pernicious myths endure, clouding this clarity and imperiling essential reforms by distorting meaningful public discourse. Detractors mistakenly describe, they are now called distractors, mistakenly describe Section 95(2)(b) as a sacrosanct term limit provision. Exactly, that is what it is, adamantly claiming that its amendment is unattainable or outright forbidden for sitting incumbents without a referendum. This fallacy of unconstitutionality and illegality is touted as an incontrovertible truth, with those who assert the myth brazenly declaring devoid of any constitutional references, logical underpinnings, or judiciary precedent, that such amendments are unconstitutional, illegal, as echoed by public intellectuals like Sipomalong. He quotes Sipomalong. Regrettable, some prominent voices cloak their lack of evidence in abrasive and hominem tactics. For instance, Tabanipov, who mobilizes his ilk to vilify, caricature, and demonize proponents of amendment to Section 95(2)(b), while sidestepping unavoidable courtroom challenges or meaningful public debate, or through blatant misrepresentation in lieu of evidence-driven journalism, such as news hawks, whose editors have blatantly and falsely alleged. This writer has argued that there is a legal lacuna, a gap or loophole in the law, which can be used to unconstitutionally and illegally amend Section 95(2)(b). The writer has not said anything or any time that there is a lacuna in the law. Quite the contrary, this writer has been emphatically clear that Section 95(2)(b) and 1431 of the Constitution are not term limit provisions, and that their amendment can be constitutionally and legally done under Section 3285 without requiring a national referendum. Such personal attacks, distortions, and invasions are not only regrettable, but utterly futile, serving only to mud the waters of reasoned public discourse. At its core, the constitutionality or legality of any amendment of the Constitution rests exclusively on adherence to the stipulated procedures, nothing else. From the inception of the presidential term of office extension proposal, the envisioned amendment to Section 95(2)(b) complies fully with Section 328 as interpreted alongside Section 131. No deviations have been suggested or enacted by any party. Compounding these myths in the pervasive myth of authority, a common pitfall in constitutional debate where revered institutions and certain influential individuals leverage their presumed prestige to prop up baseless claims. This approach imparts an illusion of credibility to assertions bereft of objective proof, rigorous analysis, and precedential support. A poignant and dispiriting illustration comes from Veritas, widely esteemed as a supposedly neutral authority on Zimbabwean jurisprudence and legal matters. On 1 March 2024, Veritas published a thoughtful, balanced piece entitled "Extending the Presidential Term Limit. Can It Be Done?" And they said available. You just inserted a link. Therein, they posed a fundamental query: which constitutional clauses would require amendment to extend the presidential term? Their unequivocal answer, the first and most obvious amendment, would be Section 91, which, as we have seen, sets out the current presidential term limit. Notable and appropriately, Veritas omitted any reference to additional term limit provisions beyond Section 91(2). This exclusion was logical, as no properly drafted democratic constitution redundantly replicates term limit stipulations. Such repetition would undermine the principles of precision and economy in legal drafting. However, fast forward a year and a half or to 9 November 2025, and Veritas released a remarkable parallel analysis. Can presidential term limit be extended? Found, he put a link there. In a dramatic about face, they declare that Section 912 and 952 are both term limit provisions, citing Section 3281's definition of a term limit clause, a provision of this constitution which limits the length of time that a person may hold or occupy a public office. This pronouncement wields the gravitas of expertise, yet it wields under elementary examination a bald assertion stripped of corroborating case law, intellectual insight, or even rudimentary interpretive logic. What prompted this sudden shift? In their 2024 analysis, Section 95.2 was notably absent from term limit deliberations, rendering this a tardy addendum. The timing itself invites scrutiny, hinting at extraneous political correctness beyond professional purity. So Jonathan Moyo is attacking everyone against his line of thought when it comes to how they intend to mutilate the constitution of Zimbabwe. He goes on to say, exacerbating the inconsistency, Veritas Zim's 2025 piece opens with a solid insight. If it is decided to lengthen the presidential term from 5 to 7 years, then Section 95(1) of the Constitution will have been amended because it provides that the length of the president's term of office is 5 years and coterminous with the life of parliament. The words 5 years would need to be changed to 7 years, and the words coterminous with the life of parliament would have to be deleted unless the life of parliament is also to be extended to 7 years. This observation aptly positions Section 95 as delimiting the span of a solitary presidential term 5 years, synchronized with parliament's duration, as indicated by its explicit heading. It enforces no restriction on the quantity of terms, nor does it constrain the aggregate tenure of an office holder. How then does it suddenly transmute into a term limit provision? Solely through unsupported decree, mirroring the maneuvers of political adversaries with whom Veritas now seems inadvertently or deliberately aligned at this pivotal moment, absent any substantive legal grounding. A dispassionate juxtaposition of Veritas Zim's March 2024 and November 2025 analysis yields an inescapable verdict. Section 95(2) does not constitute a term limit provision per Section 3281, lacking any overt cap. Sorry for that. Lacking any overt cap on presidential tenure. Claims otherwise stem not from fidelity to the constitutional text, but from partisan mythologizing. In an age that demands unyielding legal probity, these last-minute somersaults undermine credibility and highlight the perils of unexamined authority. Zimbabweans merit better public discourse, meticulous information sharing over rhetorical legerdemain. Institutional nature of office of president. Within Zimbabwe's constitution, section 95(2)b institutes a standardized singular duration structure of the presidency as a perpetual public institution, guaranteeing administrative seamlessness and electoral regularity every 5 years, rather than enforcing a tenure, a cap on specific occupants of the office. This qualifies it as a duration or term length provision, starkly differentiated from a term limit provision that imposes a cumulative cap. As a singular duration clause, Section 95(2)b mandates a consistent 5-year rhythm for each electoral cycle, operating as a foundational descriptor of institutional process. It refrains from overseeing the aggregated service of individual occupants across successive terms, a matter handled distinctly notably in section 91 2, which limits to 2 terms, with amendments invoking section 3287's referendum safeguard. Bearing the heading Term of Office of President and Vice President, Section 95 specifies that the President's term endures until a successor's inauguration following an election rooted in a 5-year foundation. Section 95(1). It operationally binds the President's span to electoral results, enabling fluid transitions and alignment with parliamentary cycles under Section 143. Functioning as a single-term directive, it facilitates the stewardship of public office through mandated recurrent elections without impinging on personal re-election qualifications, regulated independently by Section 912. The Electoral Act, Chapter 213, as amended, bolsters this institutional perspective, in part XV11, headed Provisions Related to Elections to the Office of President. Pertinent sections uniformly invoke Office of President in headings and substance. Section 104, nomination of candidates for election to Office of President, outlining prerequisites for accessing the office. Section 109, procedure after nomination day in election to Office of President, detailing subsequent processes, including uncontested election declarations. Section 110, election of Office of President, regulating polling, tabulation, runoffs, and declarations, with the winner assuming office upon oath. Section 111, election petitions in respect of election of Office of President, enabling constitutional court contest to uphold the office sanctity. This consistent lexicon, stressing elections to Office of President, nominations for Office of President, and petitions concerning Office of President, compels the inference that both the Constitution and Electoral Act envision the presidency as a public office, a lasting public entity separable from its temporal incumbent, promoting democratic perpetuity and oversight beyond mere personal incumbency. Building on this institutional bedrock, the Constitution intentionally deploys his or her tenure of office in Section 97(1)(e). Activating removal of the president requires non-honorary foreign citizenship during the interval to delineate tenure as the individualized, fluctuating extent of an incumbent's actual occupancy, distinct from the institutional, invariant term of office of president. Section 95(2) conceptualizes term of office as a temporal yardstick, 5 years, concurrent with parliament, prolonging until resignation, ouster, death, or fresh election per section 2b, encapsulating the presidency's architectural continuity and foreseeable cadence, irrespective of the occupant's vicissitudes. Conversely, Section 91 to link antecedent service akin to terms, treating 3 or more years as a full term, implying tenure as the experiential habitation of office holder, possibly abbreviated by occurrences like removal, resignation, or death. Thus, the tenure mentioned in Section 971A renders the removal criterion personal, based on the person's adaptable office holding, not the inflexible institutional chronology. This lexical exactitude preserves the presidency as an abiding public fiduciary, detachable from any deficient occupant, ensuring mid-tenure accountability without merging individual shortcomings with the office eternal scaffolding. There's still a lot. There's still a lot. I think I will take it up next time. But as you note, Professor Jonathan Moyo is bringing his own understanding, but it cannot be understanding. He is acting definitely like a paid person. He is known for spinning anything and making it appear like a reality. Writing a very, very, very long, it's like a book. It's like a book. It's very, very long book. But let me just take a few comments from the people who responded to what he wrote. Someone simply says, Futsek. Someone says, Zimbabwe's exiled genius has spoken. Let's just not always tamper with the constitution. Since 2013, Zimbabwe is not fully aligned its laws to the new constitution. Now it is being tampered with. If Zimbabweans agree that it has done exceptionally well, they can thank him through other means than an extension of his term by 2 more years. Someone says, based on your long and winding argument, Professor, it means ZANU-PF can extend what you are terming duration or term length from the current 5 years to 7 years, 10 or even 100. So, I mean, people knows who Professor Jonathan Moyo is. He is simply working, and he's the man at work, pushing his pocket to be full and not the interest of the people of Zimbabwe. In summation, that's what I can say about what I have read. I don't think I'll have the energy to continue, because the more you read this, the more you appear confused like him. We are not confused, we know what we want. And in simple terms, it is to say Futsek to 2030. Thank you very much for watching us. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when